This demo presents the features of the IBARM dashboard. The dashboard is accessed here from the toolbar, and the dashboard presents high-level metrics about the applications in the repository. It's typically used by application managers and architects. The first page that appears is called the portfolio summary page. In the upper left corner, we have the lines of code by application. Now this repository has 7 applications in it, and we can see as I pass my cursor over each of the bars here, we can see the lines of code for each of these applications. In the upper right corner, we have the total complexity by application. And complexity is calculated using an industry calculation called cyclomatic complexity. And this calculates the code complexity of individual objects such as Java classes, programs, C programs, and summarizes it up for the applications. And this gives us a relative sense of the complexity of the applications. We often see quite a difference between the lines of code and the complexity. Typically, you might often find a smaller application is much more complex and therefore requires more resources to maintain. In the lower right corner, we have a calculation of the function points by application. And again, we could get a relative sizing here of the functionality of each of these applications. In the lower left, we have a breakdown of the technologies that are used in this portfolio, and we can just get an overall sense of the technologies that make up the portfolio. If I click on one of the bars here for an application, if I click on the bar for application XYZ, it drills me down into the application summary for that application, here for application XYZ. And here I can see the breakdown of the technologies and the lines of code for this particular application. I can also see the complexity metrics, the function point metrics, and also the database complexity metrics for this application. I'm going to click on this link here called Show Most Complex Components, and that's going to take me into a page that will show me the breakdown of the complexity for this application. In this chart, we have the number of components on the vertical axis and the complexity on the horizontal axis. And the profile of most applications looks a lot like this one, where there are a large number of low complexity objects, and then fewer medium complexity, and then fewer high complexity objects, and then a few outliers, a few that are significantly more complex than the rest. And that's kind of bared out in the chart below, that we have a few very high complexity objects. And if I scroll down a little further on this page, we can actually see the objects. This is a Java application, so we have Java classes here. We can see the most complex Java classes. And what this page is really used for, it's really an opportunity for refactoring. It's an opportunity to have a look at these most complex Java classes and determine whether we want to do some refactoring, make them smaller, make them more less complex, make them more understandable and more maintainable. There are a large number of reports in the dashboard. I'm just going to be able to show you a few of them today. We have reports such as application dead code, which will show us code that is no longer referenced. Typically in a COBOL application, you will often find code that no longer can be referenced. You can't get to that code. That's what the dead code is. There are other reports. We can see application unreferenced components, and this would show us objects that are not referenced. Often this points out obsolete code that no longer is used and really should be removed from your repositories to make sure that that obsolete code is really just taken out of the picture. Here is another report we call a duplicate code report. And the idea of the duplicate code report is to identify objects that have a large amount of duplication. In this case, we can see we've got JavaScripts that are duplicated here. Further down, I can see I saw some programs here. Here's some JavaScript that has a large amount of code that is duplicated. What we tend to find here is in Java web applications, we tend to find typically entire scripts, often entire directories that are duplicated. In mainframe COBOL applications, we find code that's been cloned. So programs that have often hundreds or thousands of lines of code in common. Basically what this is identifying duplicate code. To me, duplicate code is always a bad thing. Duplicate code means duplicate maintenance. So again, it's an opportunity for refactoring to remove that duplication from your system. Another report that's available in the dashboard is one we call the portfolio context diagram. I actually refer to it as the interfaces diagram. And let me just zoom out here so we can see this a little better. And this diagram presents the interfaces between the applications in the repository, and those applications are shown in blue here. The applications in white are applications where we've been able to deduce an interface to those applications. Typically, it's a program to program, program to database. Maybe it's a file access, an FTP, could be a service access. That's where we've been able to deduce those interfaces to those applications. That's where those applications have been identified. If I click on one of the applications here, it will drill me down to what we call the application context diagram, which just shows the interfaces for that specific application. And then if I drill down a little more, it will drill me down to the specific types of interfaces for that application. So here we can see that application CBP has a number of interfaces. And we can see, for example, it has programs that access database tables in application TRD, and there are 21 of those. And we can continue to drill down. If I click on those, that we can drill down to the actual programs and the actual tables that are involved in those interfaces. So what's the value here? Well, it's always a good idea to understand the interfaces between your applications. It's really important if you're going to, for example, decommission an application. If I was going to decommission application CBP here, then I would need to handle all of those interfaces, all of those lines need to be handled one way or another to make sure that we don't have an issue that would occurring when we decommission or remove a specific application. So the dashboard presents high-level metrics, high-level comparison of applications, interfaces between applications, high-level metrics about the size, quality, complexity of those applications. Typically used a lot by application managers who are responsible for managing the quality, complexity of applications. Also, it helps them to better understand where to place their resourcing based on the quality and complexity of those applications. Also very useful for architects. Interfaces are often very important for architects and understanding the details of those interfaces. So this demo has presented to you a brief look at some of the features of the IBARM dashboard.